Miami is limping into the All-Star break after a fourth straight loss, the latest versus a Dallas team missing half its roster. Is this just a midseason malaise, or is this what the team will really be for the rest of the season? We'll break that down on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Have a jam-packed show for you today. The Heat, they lose again. And we have questions about what this season could look like after the All-Star break. But first, we want to announce the next Locked On Heat watch party, Friday, February 28th at the Taurus in Coconut Grove for the Heat's game against the Pacers. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. Come watch the game with us, hang out, take advantage of an extended happy hour, signature cocktail, and great food, and hopefully watch a Heat win, because God knows we need it, David. But we are looking forward to it
anymore.
Do you want me to play it, or...
No. That wasn't a request, but it has been a while.
The Heat went into this game really needing a win after getting blowing that game in Oklahoma City, and they had a chance. Both teams missing a ton of guys just to set the stage here. The Mavericks were without Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, just a bunch of guys out for them. Meanwhile, the Heat stomach virus continues to ravage the locker room. Andrew Wiggins is affected by it. Bam Adebayo sits this one out with the knee bruise. Terry Rozier also still dealing with the stomach illness. Both of these teams playing on the second night of a back-to-back. This was a crazy game, David. 32 lead changes in this one. No team ever led by more than 8 points. The Heat were down by 8 with a minute 40 left. Hero gets fouled on a corner three for the 4-point play. Then Duncan Robinson makes a huge three-pointer to make it a 3-point game with a minute and a half to go. The Heat force a shot clock violation with 30 seconds to go, and they get a chance to tie the game. Hero gets a look from the corner. I didn't mind the look. That's kind of in his wheelhouse. It was contested, but at that point, I guess you just kind of have to take the shot. He misses. Yeah. And then the real problem here was that the Heat waste 8 seconds before finally fouling Spencer Dinwiddie. He goes to the line, makes both free throws. That puts the Heat down 5 with 8 seconds left, as opposed to going down 5 with maybe 15 or 16 seconds left. So you only really get one shot there. Duncan Robinson misses the three, and that's the ball game. The Heat have lost 4 straight going into the break. They fall to 3 games under 500 at the All-Star break. David, what was your big takeaway from this one?
Hard to take anything away from this game because, as you mentioned, missing so many key players. You don't know if this is like the formation of something. You don't know if this is symbolic or representative or accurately representative of something on this team. But you just look at this team and the way they play, and you just pointed out a very costly mistake at the end of the game. They just seem like they are exhausted and fried and incapable of making good decisions. We've talked about this for the past week or so, that Bam Adebayo has pointed out that this is not the team that he once played for in terms of their ability to focus on the small things, to do the small things right, to make up for a lack of talent perhaps by finding ways to win, making winning plays. Isn't that something Erik Spoelstra always talks about? Well, nobody's making winning plays here. They're making losing plays, or whatever the exact opposite of that would be. And that's where they're at right now, is that they're just not playing very well. They're not playing very smartly. You see a lot of clunkiness on this from the squad. And I know you're incorporating new players and things of that sort, but it looks weird. Like the spacing looks awkward. Sometimes there are moments where players are just occupying the same space, and it doesn't seem like everything's flowing the way it should. And then to your point about the last few seconds there, everybody's kind of just standing around going, well, what do we do? And whether that's reflective of the coaching staff or nobody saying you got to foul right away, or them kind of just saying at the end of the game, it's like, oh, we're already down 5. What's the point? Or we're already down X. What's the point of fouling? I don't know. It wasn't clicking there. And so you have to wonder where this team is at mentally, because right now they're just not playing at a very high level. So I think the break comes at a very much needed time for this group.
Yeah, I've never seen a Heat team in more need of the All-Star break, more than this one. The attention to detail isn't there. You mentioned before, this is a Heat team that usually overcomes a talent deficit with trying hard and being detail-oriented. They were not the team at the talent deficit in this one. I know both teams were missing a lot of guys. They still had the all-star in this game, and Tyler Hero played well, but they were not the team at the talent deficit here. They had size. Dallas didn't have any of their centers. They played a two-way guy that nobody's ever heard of for only a few minutes. Like, they had the personnel advantage in this game, and the attention to detail wasn't there. You let that skeleton crew Mavericks team shoot 51%. You missed 9 free throws in this game. Yeah. Erik Spoelstra looks like he's going to have an aneurysm on the sideline. And by the way, his coaching, not nearly what we're used to here. I don't know if the not fouling at the end there was Erik Spoelstra not getting his team prepared or whatever it was, but he was also screaming on the sideline to foul him. There was another occasion where you can hear whether it was Spo. I couldn't really make it out if it was Spo or another coach, but Najee Marshall in the fourth quarter hit a big corner three, and he was wide open for that corner three. And you can hear the mics pick it up. That's how loud they were screaming. That's Najee Marshall. Which means, hey, in the scouting report, we have it in there. If Marshall's in the corner, you got to defend him. You got to go to the corner with him. You can't give him wide open corner threes because that's his shot. And that's just basic, KYP, know your personnel stuff. And they haven't done it in this game. They weren't really doing it and executing against the Thunder. And they've lost 4 straight games here for a reason. And that excuse of the Jimmy Butler saga being a distraction, maybe there's still a little haze of that as they're starting to figure out these new guys and figure out where they fit in and all this stuff. But that's not an excuse anymore. Like, they've got to dial it in. And like I said, this team desperately needs this all-star break. They look physically and mentally exhausted.
Compare Dallas. They traded away their franchise player out of nowhere, a move that nobody saw coming. And they've won 4 out of 5 games, right? They've been playing much better. And that's a team that could just as easily fold up and just say, you know what, we don't care anymore. We traded away Luka, the guy that we acquired him for. AD isn't even going to play. Like, I mean, this is they could have just sold the rest of the season and nobody would have blamed them one bit. Like, the fans are tired of this franchise. The fans are pissed off, and the team could have just folded easily. And instead, they're playing better. This Miami team has no excuse for playing the way they have. Like, the Jimmy Butler trade is over. It's been over. Anthony, like all the players that they acquired, they've just got to figure it out, whether they're out there or not, on the floor or not. And as far as the players that are left on the floor, like Tyler Hero, like he's been here long enough to know what to do. Like, he played a decent game today, but he struggled against the Thunder. He struggled against other teams in the past. There's no excuse. The trade is over. Like, I hate to be cold and calculating about it, but that's the reality of the NBA business, is that, you know what, you got to put that stuff in the rearview mirror very quickly because you don't have a lot of time. And I know that they're looking forward to the All-Star break and the second night of a back-to-back on the road. Not easy. I get it. But still, you can't just peter away a lead in the fourth quarter in 2 consecutive games and struggle the way that you have over the last handful of games. Like, this Miami team should be better than that. Like, I know the proof is in the pudding and the record doesn't reflect it and everything else like that. But you look at this group and they should be winning these games. They should be better than what they actually are. I'll maintain that and I'll believe that wholeheartedly. But right now they're just not getting it done. And there's no excuse for the way they've played of late.
Yeah, I agree with you. Based on this roster, they should be better than what they are. This is the rare Heat team that is not overcoming or outplaying expectations, or they are downplaying. Like, they're playing worse than what we'd expect this roster to be, even without Jimmy Butler, right? Like, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, even adding Andrew Wiggins to this group. You look at this team, like Jaime Jaquez Jr. had a little bit of a spurt in the first quarter, but wasn't very good in this one. Nikola Jovic wasn't very good in this one. So your first round picks just haven't been very good. Kel'el Ware had 17 points in this game. Offensively, he had moments, especially in the first half. Defensively, it was a mess. It was an absolute mess for him in this game. And you need not just a guy like Tyler Hero to play well. And I thought Tyler Hero had a great game. I know he only went 3 for 14 from three-point range, but his decision to say, you know what, I just don't have it. Let me kind of go vintage Tyler Hero and get into the paint a little bit more. Career high in paint points in this game for Tyler Hero. I think he finished with 22 or 24 paint points. in this game out of his 40. I thought that was a really good decision by him. He got to the free throw line a bunch, got a bunch of rebounds. Davion Mitchell had this great chase down block. That might have been the highlight of the game. Khalil Ware had an amazing poster dunk in this game. So there's definitely some highlights to take away from it, but this team is very far from being able to sustain themselves on highlights. They need wins. We're going to talk about that here a little bit more. Is this just midseason exhaustion? Is this just who the Miami Heat are? Can they turn things around? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. Just yesterday, Jamal Murray dropped a double nickel, 55 points. So today, when a player scores 50 points or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, just like Murray did yesterday, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon until midnight. So you place your order from noon to midnight, you get $10 off, up to 50% off any order. Here's a few ways you can take advantage of the deals. Let's say you're watching a game, maybe the last games of this before the All-Star break. Get a game day feast after an epic 50-point performance. Celebrate by ordering wings, pizza, burgers from your favorite spot delivered straight to your door. You get lunch on the go. You need a quick and easy lunch for the next day with Dash Pass. You get your favorite meals with $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees. Plus, now you save even more with this exclusive NBA offer. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get $50 off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms do apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team is a free daily newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Heat newsletter, one stop for ultimate Heat and league coverage with local analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shear, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. This team is in need of the All-Star break. But, David, can we realistically expect things to get better after? I think yes. And maybe I'm just holding out hope. Maybe I'm just too much of an optimist. But is even like a couple games over 500 better? It is, right? I mean, this team is 3 games under 500. They've lost 4 in a row. They're not this bad. And I know that they're going to... I think the detail-orienting stuff, the whatever, for whatever reason, not fouling at the end of this game, all that mental exhaustion. I know we talk about like even this team recovering from the haze and the distraction of the Jimmy Butler trade saga, but even guys like Davion Mitchell and Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins didn't play in this one, but guys who have had to move mid-season, Kyle Anderson, guys who have and figure this out. It gives them a moment to kind of just reset, figure out where they're going to be in Miami and kind of get acclimated here. Erik Spoelstra, like I said, he is in desperate need of a mental break. You could just tell watching him, listening to him in these post-game interviews and things like that. I'm holding out hope that after the All-Star break, this team can be better. Do I think that they're going to be contenders? Do I think that they're going to suddenly rattle off 12 straight wins? No, I don't think that. But they're going to be better than this. What do you think?
I agree. I think we're closer to them being winners of 7 or 8 out of 10 than losing 7 or 8 out of 10 the way they have been of late. So I think when you look at this, I don't know what the difference is going to be. Maybe it is just a matter of just taking a step back and being like, okay, we just got traded a week ago, as you said. Like, these are human beings with very human lives off the court that we don't get a chance to see. And you don't always thrive. Maybe for a guy like Jimmy, who is thriving in Golden State, maybe that kind of move is easier for him. Like, it's hard to kind of look at it and say why it's easier for some players than it is for others, but it's, it's something that he's capable of handling a little bit differently. And for the players that are in Miami now, they're kind of adjusting to us. And we're supposing this, like we're not reporting or anything like this. We haven't talked to the players, although that is the reality of NBA life, is you get traded and you have a lot to deal with off the court. You got to find a place to stay. You got to move your family around. You got to figure it out. You're in a very kind of weird quasi limbo state where you're not quite sure what to do and where to go and things of that sort. You're kind of adjusting to life on the road with new teammates and a new roster.
And Andrew Wiggins just had a daughter, right before he got traded here. And by the way, like they are so far from the problem Like Davion Mitchell and Andrew Wiggins are not the problem. If
Right.
anything, they're like Wiggins had an okay game. He hasn't had that game where he popped off, but Mitchell, his energy, what he's providing as a point of attack defender, that is not the issue here. It's kind of everything else.
Yeah, no doubt. So it's gotta take some time, and I think the break comes at a good point for him to kind of recharge, to kind of refocus, to get acclimated with your new surroundings and figure it out. Like this is just part of being human and then having to figure out life in the NBA sometimes, and it's going to be a little bit of a process. So the break comes at a good time for everybody, and at the same time, like you have to be able to play better. You have to be able to gel, and that's on the coaching staff. And I think we've been strangely accused of being Spo apologists. I don't think we are. I don't think either of us are. The truth is, we recognize Spo as a very good coach that also makes some mistakes at times, like any other coach. And coaching, I think, also gets slightly overrated at times in terms of its overall impact. But I think he needs to figure out what to do with this roster, and I think the break comes at a good time for him, like for him to just understand what this roster is capable of and how to mesh it well and how to get players to enjoy playing time and maximize
Well,
that
if you
time.
think even just about what this roster and this team has gone through, like the transformation, and I'm not just talking about the Jimmy Butler trade stuff. I'm talking about the beginning of the year, thinking that you're going to play this 5-out offense where you're awarding 1 point for mid-range shots in training camp in the Bahamas, and that was what they wanted to do. They wanted to play at a fast pace with Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero as your starting backcourt, figuring out like a 5-out offense and all of this stuff, to going from that to Jimmy Butler's not engaged, to we're starting Khalil Ware and Bam Adebayo together. Now all of a sudden we're playing this way. And Terry Rozier was yanked out of the starting lineup within a month of going into the season. They figured out that didn't work. This team has undergone so many weird transformations. I think Erik Spoelstra does need a second to step back and be like, so what am I doing here again? And that's fine. And, you're right. We get accused of being Erik Spoelstra apologists, and I understand that. I've also said, this has been Spo's worst coaching season in a while. And we can make excuses for it. There's reasons for everything, but that's the fact. There has been a drop in the attention to detail. We heard Bam Adebayo after that Thunder loss talking about how it's on the players and the coaches, right? And I think that's correct. I don't think that's shade towards Spo. It's not, I can't find joy here and I don't like how I'm being used. It's not that, but it's honest. It's factual. It's everybody here isn't performing up to their job and what they're expected to do here. Now, on the other side of the All-Star break, this is also a rough schedule, right? Like you've got Boston and Oklahoma City, the 2 championship favorites, and then you've got Dallas on the second night of back-to-back. They should have won this game. There's no excuse for this. But on the other side of the break, you come back and you're on the road for 3 games, Toronto, Milwaukee, Atlanta. But those 3 games are winnable. Those are winnable games. Atlanta on a Monday, second night of a back-to-back on the road. It's a little tough. Milwaukee's got Giannis, but nobody's like scared of the Bucks, right? That Toronto game, that's a winnable game. You follow that up with 4 straight games at home: Indiana, New York, Washington, Cleveland. Now, New York and Cleveland, they're awesome. Indiana's sort of a trick-or-treat team. Sometimes they look great, sometimes they don't. Washington, you're supposed to win that game. They should, even on the second night of back-to-back. It gets a little bit easier is my point. You have Minnesota, Chicago, Charlotte after that. Chicago and Charlotte, those should be wins. If you can take care of business against the teams that you're supposed to beat, which this Heat team has historically done a very good job of, even this season, before, this last month or so, you take care of the teams that you're supposed to beat. Maybe you steal a win against those teams that you're not supposed to beat. One or 2 wins against those teams, and you kind of get an upset there. And all of a sudden you're thinking and you're feeling a lot different about this team. I know I'm supposing and hypotheticaling right now, but that's kind of where I think this is going.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it feels like this team is poised for something. And I know that we're hearing criticism, etc. But I also think, and maybe I'm projecting here, although I don't feel that's the case. My thought is that the baseline for the mood of this team right now is much more positive because the Jimmy situation has been resolved. The trade is done and over with. There's no other shoe waiting to fall, and you're kind of aware of that. And so I think they just needed a little bit of a break. It has been exhausting. It has been trying, and you can now kind of just put all that behind you and focus on the future. And I think you're going to see a team that's much more locked in, engaged, and understanding what's at stake here, because they want to win. And I think there was a revitalization after following the trade. Like, you could kind of sense that from that group, that, you know what, we finally got it done. It was relief and also optimism about the players that they acquired, that they were going to be able to find a way to mesh and contribute. And I think we see that at the beginning of games when they play as well as they do and they have this incredible spark, etc. But it just tapers off because, unfortunately, talent just seems to win out, and Miami still is lacking. But I think an execution, I think, is also a big part of some of these late game collapses as well. So I think it's going to tie in together in a way that's positive. I think you're going to start to see these challenges being on the road to start off the All-Star break. Again, that tends to be a bonding experience. I think you're going to see this team kind of re-energize and approach this with a different mentality. I don't know. I maybe I'm blinded myself into thinking this, but I'm optimistic about the way they can close out the rest of the season.
If you just take the sample of what this team has been most of the season, again, hovering around 500, but not this bad, too. Like, every team goes through a tough stretch, and I think Miami's going through their tough stretch now.
Sure.
And I just think expectations have to be managed with this team. You just traded your star player. The window is no longer open, right? And I argued that the window wasn't open before you traded, like when you had the star player. I think the window has been closed on this team for 2 years now. But with that becomes adjusted expectations. They're trying to create a new foundation for whatever is the next thing here, right? You're not going to just trade Jimmy Butler and then suddenly vault into championship contention all of a sudden in the Eastern Conference. It's just not going to work. So I think that's part of it too. If I'm Tyler Hero, I'm going to San Francisco for the All-Star break and all that stuff. I'm going to Napa for like 4 days, and I'm zoning out. If I'm the rest of these guys, I know Jaime's got to be there for the Rising Stars Challenge. If I'm the rest of these guys, I'm going to the Bahamas for a week. Huge mental reset, physical reset, all of it. Just like get away from all of this and clear your head. That's my prescription. If I'm Pat Riley, I'm telling Erik Spoelstra the same thing. Watch film for a couple days, but then stop. Like just get out of there. Coming up next, who needs to step up the most after the All-Star break? And has anybody heard from Haywood Highsmith? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off, you want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, well, maybe not from Miami, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com to get your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show, like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks to everybody who sent in listener questions via the Locked On Heat Insider community. If you want to join, you could do so with the link in the show notes. Free for 14 days, $4.99 a month after that. You get a bunch of great things, including first dibs at asking these listener questions. We have a couple that I want to get to here. The first one is from Zay, who writes in, how do the Heat overcome this crazy season, and who needs to step up after the All-Star break? I have my name, if you want me to go ahead first here.
I have my name, too.
You have a name? Go. Give me.
Yep. I did. It's Nikola Jovic.
I have the same thing.
Do you really? We've been doing the show too long. Yeah, but I think he raises the ceiling and the floor for this team so much when he's playing better, when he's hitting a three-point shot, when he's engaged and aggressive and not in his own. Like we've seen it throughout the course of the season. When he was starting and he couldn't hit a shot to save his life, he was dragging the team down. Then he was coming off the bench and he provided this great spark. He led to winning again. Now it's back and forth. It's been back and forth for most of the season. This team just plays better when he's playing at his best. When he's able to give you 15 to 17 points, including 3 of 5 shooting from three-point range, that's where this team is capable of beating anybody, and that's when they're playing their best. And we just haven't seen that from him over the last week or so. And that being the case, I think when he comes back, as much as anybody, he needs to be recharged. He needs to be refreshed, and he needs to be able to go out there and give you that kind of stat line, that kind of production to help carry this team. Because you know what you're getting from Tyler. He's going to have an off shooting night. Bam is making a resurgence. Khalil is going to have some off nights as a rookie, etc. You're incorporating the new guys. That's not the point. He raises the bar for this team so much more when he's bringing that level of play off the bench that we've seen from him in sport and in different spots throughout the course of the season. When he's playing at a higher level, this team is better.
Yeah, he's nearly as important to that two-man front court, the two big man front court as Bam and Khalil Ware is, right? Because he's the third guy who comes in and can play with either one of them. He plays with Ware and he plays with Bam. And he needs to hold up his end of the bargain in that front court mix there for that to be viable and for it to work and for it to be a weapon. And does anybody in the league miss 6 straight shots more often than Nikola Jovic? He is the king of just missing 6 straight shots in a row. It's all the time with this guy, and then he'll hit a couple, and then he'll kind of go on a spurt here. He needs to iron that out of his game, in other words. And when he's playing really well, he's an anchor of the bench unit. Suddenly he's more involved in the offense. You start getting into those high-low actions with him and Ware, with him and Bam. He can start point guarding a little bit when he's ripping down those defensive boards and he's sprinting down the end of the court. It's giving the Miami Heat a different look. It's pushing the pace. And I think with this team in particular, without Jimmy Butler, and trying to figure out how they're going to play, this team does need to play faster. I think there's a big home for Nico in a post-Jimmy Butler Miami Heat team. But he's got to pick his bedroom like you're on a bachelor party and you're all going to Airbnbs and somebody's got to be the first in the door and just pick out the master bedroom. I want Nico walking into that Airbnb and picking out the master bedroom and saying, I belong here. This is my house now. And I want him playing with that kind of confidence. And the interesting thing apart about this all, David, is Jimmy Butler was the guy that used to pour that confidence into him, used to hype him up, talk him up. That was his guy. And without Jimmy there, I wonder who that becomes for Nico. And it's not to say that there's a lack of leadership in the locker room, but him and Jimmy just had such a unique and special bond. Yeah. Dating back to Nico's rookie season, I just wonder who that becomes now, or if Nico needs it. Can Nico become his own hype man? Like that void still needs to be filled by something. Yeah.
The obvious choice is Kevin. I think that's somebody who's primed for that sort of role, but I just he hasn't been available either. He hasn't been much of a factor. I mean, not to say that his playing time is necessarily
away from the team right now for personal reasons.
Yeah. So that's a little bit harder. But I think you also have to see Nico embrace that transformation on his own and say, you know what, I don't need to get hyped up anymore. I can do this on my own because it's just a couple of shots. When they don't fall, then you bounce back and you figure it out. You can't use youth as an excuse or a reason anymore. Although he is young, and I get it. At the same time, he's been through this. He's been in the playoff situations. He understands what's at stake here, and I think he needs to find a way to be more impactful. Because again, I think the team plays better when he's playing at his best.
Next question comes from Malachi, who writes in, what exactly is Haywood Highsmith's role on the team? I don't understand why he isn't playing in every game. I had to double check after the game. I thought I had it down. I'm like, I know everybody who's injured. I know everybody who's dealing with this stomach illness. Did I miss Haywood Highsmith? Because he didn't play at all in this game. Nope, not on the injury report. Just a DNP-CD, just an old-fashioned scratch on a night where this team didn't have a lot of guys available. To answer Malachi's question, I don't know what his role on the team is. I know what it should be. I know he should be playing, but I can't figure it out, and I can't figure out why Erik Spoelstra routinely goes with other guys instead of Highsmith when I know that Haywood Highsmith can walk in and be a high-level, elite defensive player right away. And you look at this game where you let this Dallas Mavericks skeleton crew shoot 51%, and I'm like, Highsmith could have helped. Highsmith could have helped on Dinwiddie. Highsmith could have helped on Kessler Edwards, who, do you remember he had a huge game when he was playing with the Brooklyn Nets against the Miami Heat? He might have the crown as the new random scrub Heat killer. I thought Highsmith should have been in this game. I can't figure out why, and I don't know why he's just routinely in the doghouse for Erik Spoelstra. I don't know if you have some sort of answer here. I don't. I have nothing.
No, neither do I. I remember covering the team when I first moved back to Miami, and then seeing this play out with Kelly Olynyk. Like, this was the guy who was you needed 3-point spacing, you needed his passing, all the Kelly keeper, all the things that he did well, and then he would play a couple games, and then Butkus, like you just wouldn't see him for a handful of games, and then you'd ask Spo about it, and he's like, "Oh, he's putting in the work behind the scenes." It's like, okay, so what's the deal here? And then eventually he plays again, and you go, "Why did you go with Kelly?" And he's like, "Oh, he's been putting in the work behind the scenes." So I don't know. There's always something with Spo in terms of what he sees and the work being put in somewhere. And I guess maybe he doesn't feel like Haywood's doing it. That's all I can come up with. And again, I'm not reporting
And that's the
anything.
part
I don't know this for
figure
certain.
out. I mean, the work in what? They don't really practice.
They haven't
They haven't
practiced
had a
yet.
practice.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Maybe
I don't know
it's,
where
I
he
guess
could have.
maybe it's just shoot around, but we're like 2 weeks away from, we're 2 weeks removed from Haywood Highsmith being elevated to the starting lineup instead of Jimmy Butler, and now he's not even in the rotation. It's I can't figure it out. I have no idea. I don't know if it is the work behind the scenes thing. You're absolutely right. Like that's the best call out, and maybe that is just simply what it is. Maybe it's a schematic thing. I don't know. Maybe this is something that Erik Spoelstra during this All-Star break kind of looks at the numbers and says, "Oh wait, I guess Haywood Highsmith is an awesome defender, and a lot of our good lineups have Haywood Highsmith in it." And I don't know, man. I can't figure it out. And hopefully Haywood Highsmith has a role on this team after the
Maybe a
break.
conspiracy theorist.
Yes, of course.
The tank is on, the soft tank, and by not
And
playing
that's why
Haywood
they won't play
Highsmith,
Highsmith. Highsmith is the guy that's holding this team back from being a playoff team.
well,
to a tanking
he
team.
only gives 110%. A couple of defensive possessions going in Miami's way, and you can just say, "Oh man, we were right there. We were so close." Haywood's good for a couple 6-point swings, and you know what? And that's
that's
the
some
difference in a couple games.
that's some galaxy brain thinking there. I respect it. I respect it.
Nice.
Even if I know you don't believe it. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.